and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
With our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. It's a podcast about the news, which occasionally, when all else fails, reverts to humor.
And it's going to be hilarious today because we get to talk about the most interesting, ironic, layered subject matter, which of course is tax law.
Mm-hmm.
Which we all agree is the funniest thing.
I think, Adam, the amount of comedic opportunities around the budget, I would argue, are endless. As varied and deep as the tax code itself, if you listen to Angus Taylor, which is too long. There's too many pages. That's the problem. They got 2,000 pages, or we want fucking 200 pages. Because less pages is better pages, mate.
I mean, on principle, you know what? I'm with Angus on that one. Fucking, they fill it with too much shit.
Tom Heath.
Give it to me straight.
Let's the time of date.
Stop.
Let's document it. Okay, 17th of the 5th. Tom Heath, 2026.
Agreed
I'm with Angus Taylor.
No.
Don't use that out of context. Hopefully no one does anything fucking stupid with that.
Yeah, no, I hope. I hope some LLM isn't just absorbing that so it can regurgitate that as fact later.
The user is asking me to explain why Tom Heath is a fucking idiot.
Well, he agreed with Angus Taylor once.
Right, good job. Well done, Angus.
But, they fill it they like to just span it out with too many pages of stuff by using words like deficit and dividend and net and gross.
These are not big words, Tom. Are you okay?
Stop.
Do you smell burnt toast by any chance? Are you all right?
I don't know. It's just, is it more money? Is it
I thought you were going to say legalese, heretofore and thereafter.
Well, yes, it's full of
those,
legalese, but also that's accounting legalese. The
depreciation.
legalese equivalent in accounting, right? Yeah, you talk about depreciation of assets. Stop using these fucking bullshit accounting words. Is my life gonna be better or not? Are you taxing the rich? Yes or no?
So the real question is, are you a fucking Chad winner?
Yeah.
Or are you a pleb loser?
Are you a shithead cuck loser? Yeah,
that is true.
And thank you.
Is the government budget mogging me with while I cost of living max? Or
oh God. But no. Thanks
no
for
cap
that.
fam. They are.
Thanks for that, Tom, and just ensuring that absolutely no one watching this will take our budget analysis seriously. I spent actually a not insignificant amount of time sort of looking at it.
Ladies and gentlemen, he had notes. He posted notes.
Bitch, I've got notes. I got pages of notes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Should we just leave? Should I just go for a walk?
Yeah, you guys actually don't need to be here for this. I don't know why you. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about who the Chads are, who the fucking shithead cuck losers are. Adam, I love this framing for the budget. That always makes perfect sense.
Oh, that's great.
To categorize a budget in terms of winners and losers. It makes perfect sense rather than just analyzing the policy.
Yeah.
We all lose. That's the that's the answer. Because we had to listen to it. No, look, this is allegedly the biggest, most impactful shake-up of a budget, of budgetary taxation policy in, they're saying 25 years. Or
So yeah,
like
a number of years certainly.
The main headline from this budget is that they have gotten rid of negative gearing for existing builds.
Oh, happy days.
See,
oh,
this
happy
is
days.
where it gets
oh,
complicated.
Happy days.
But
when Jesus washed, he
almost
washed
like you've
my
been-
sins away.
You've been hoping for this
happy
since 2016, George.
days.
Isn't it? No, they've gotten rid of negative gearing only if you
For
buy an existing house after last Tuesday, and if you already had a house prior to last Tuesday, you can still negatively gear it, and if it's a new build, you can still negatively gear it. See what I mean by they fill it with full of words like deficit and bullshit?
So
either
Tom,
get rid of it
Tax
or
is
don't.
complicated.
Yeah,
Tom,
overcomplicate.
tax is complicated.
So negative gear. If you've got a property that you negatively, or properties that one is negatively gearing, you can still continue to negatively gear those properties. If you are purchasing a new build, you can negatively gear that. But for properties that are purchased after the date of the budget, you will not be able to claim that negative gearing offset.
Yeah.
So negative gearing,
And
for those who
what
don't
is-
know...
what is
let's
negative gearing?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Negative gearing, for those who don't know, is the ability to write off any losses that one incurs in the administration of a property and declare it against your tax. So say, for example, I have a property that's worth $1 million. I rent it out for $50,000 a year, but the interest and other expenses on that property are $60,000. Then there's $10,000 there that I can declare against my taxes. So if I'm making $100,000 a year, I basically claim those losses and I only pay tax on $90,000 a year. So
And then you fall asleep.
The reason this exists was ostensibly to make property investing a no-lose proposition. So when the Howard government brought these and other reforms in the late 90s, early 2000s, the idea was that, it's going to supercharge the property sector. Everyone's going to want to get involved, and we're trying to help build wealth for the Australian populace. And what it does is, you can see in the graph, right? I know I'm the graph guy, but like you can see on the graph, it's this along with capital gains tax discounts, which we'll talk about in a sec, basically ballooned the property market over the last 20 years, along with cheap money and along with other things. But you can see the correlation.
There's a causation. It's a correlation. There's a correlation.
The introduction of these policies, and that's when the graphs start wedging and widening massively.
Correct.
And so the entire intention behind these policies, as I understand it, was to encourage building. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't do that. It's just that cash hand back for fucking rich people. And the thing is, the people that benefit the most from these policies are people who are salaried, who make large amounts of money that need to offset the tax on the amount of money that they earn. So who's benefiting the most out of it? Well, occupations like surgeons and solicitors and
like the top 1%.
The top 1% of earners who have a lot of income that they need to defray in order to avoid paying tax. Well, they're the ones who benefit the most out of this. The occupations that benefit the least out of it, people are on minimum wage, right? So it is a benefit that accrues disproportionately to those who are richest. And it's always been my argument that it's not the job of the government to make investing a zero risk proposition in any arena.
Well, it's not a zero.
Let alone,
I mean, it's a deduction. Yeah. It's not a complete write off. It's you get to.
Yeah. But Adam, but it's not,
your tax liability.
But it's not a loss because the idea is you hold the property, you don't lose any money while you're holding it, even if you're renting it out for this whole idea of like, renting it out. It's like, okay, well, you rent out the property and you generate income. That's income you still get, right?
Yes.
So the loss that you make, quote unquote loss, and some of these losses I would argue are probably inflated in order to generate the benefit that negative gearing provides. But the loss that you then take, right, is declared against your taxes. So you pay lower taxes for the life of the time that you own the property. And you likely turn around and sell the property for a massive capital gain fucking 5-10 years later down the track when it's doubled, tripled in price, right? So we're protecting them from risk throughout the entire lifetime of them getting this, where we, the taxpayer, are paying these people to hold these properties. And then when they sell them, they only pay tax on half of what they would otherwise pay because of the capital gains tax discount.
Let's talk about capital gains. So
it's not middle class welfare. It's high class, high net worth welfare that we're providing at the expense of the balance sheet to these. Can you shut the fuck up and let me explain it? I know you want to talk about the thing. Can you let me fucking explain it so then we can talk about it, cunt? Fuck. Can I mute you? I'm in charge of the room. Can I fucking mute you?
What is capital gains tax? Let's talk about
capital gain tax is the tax that you pay on the profit of the realization of investment. You buy a house for $1 million, you sell it for $2 million, you pay tax on the $1 million profit that you make. Now, if you hold that asset for over a year, then you get something that's called the capital gains tax discount, where you would pay half the amount of tax that you would otherwise pay. It goes to whatever it is. I think it's... I'm not going to quote numbers because I don't have them off the top of my head. It's half of what you would pay. And obviously this privileges people who are asset owners, right?
Correct.
People who have accrued a bunch of financial means and resources.
People who gain capital regularly.
Yeah. And so either you're on a high income already to begin with. That's how you acquired the assets in the first place. And or you're just sitting on a bunch of generational wealth,
inheritance,
in which case, you know, that's how you earn income. So the idea is that owning assets and selling assets makes you pay a much lower rate of tax doing that than you do working. And to my mind, there's no fucking difference whatsoever. The government should tax you accordingly on the amount that you make in a year based on, regardless of whether you're working to earn that money or whether you just happen to buy a bunch of Google shares and sell them at the right time. There is no difference to my mind as to
they're all forms of income,
so it
should be applicable to income tax.
It is worth also noting that when we talk about capital gains tax, it doesn't just affect property; it also affects
shares
any
and
any asset that you sell. So, exactly, shares, crypto, or business assets as well. So businesses also pay capital gains tax. These are all things that are important to consider in the conversation that will follow. So
I don't understand why you would ever discount that, because it's like, by definition, you've realized a profit. So like, you've made money, right? So why is that money then treated differently whether you work to earn that money or whether you clicked buy in 2012 and then clicked sell in 2015? I would argue that the labor that you produced in 3 years is much more significant than the decision to buy and sell over 3 years.
They have, so the new policy is, they've removed that discount. It will now be taxed at 30%, and it will be the gain after inflation, if that makes sense. So the real gain.
Yeah, so they've taken into account that inflation adds every year, so you're not paying the gain based on if you bought the shares 20 years ago, just that. You're taking into account inflation over those years as well, right? So what the gain is on the real present value of that money, if that makes sense.
This will take, I believe, this is my understanding, and I could have got the date wrong, but
just wait. There's some guy on the internet who's going to call you a cuck shithead.
They could correct me. That's fine. But it will affect any assets that are held since 1985. So if you have been holding on to an asset, whether a share or a house or whatever, since 1986, and you want to sell it now in what will be 2027, then you will need to pay a new rate, not the existing one. So that's the other. So capital gains. Now there's a third thing in this, which is probably which just ties into the property aspect, right? So we want to nail down the property aspect. The third thing is there is now a 30% tax on. I've got to get the right kind of trust right from my memory. I think it's family trusts. Yeah.
Again, only for high net worth individuals who want to shelter themselves and their family from taxation. That's the only reason a family trust exists. Oh, we got X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars out from this business. Well, I'm going to put a bunch of it in my fucking 17-year-old's name. And he's going to get his tax-free threshold. My wife's going to get her tax-free threshold. The dog's going to get his tax-free threshold. And then all of a sudden you're defraying the costs, you're defraying the tax you would otherwise pay on this amount across many, many multiple members, most of whom probably don't work. And guess who gets the most benefit? The top 1% of our asset holders and income earners in the fucking country get almost the entirety of the benefit. Because I don't know about you guys, I don't have a fucking family trust paying me out fucking dividends. Most people fucking don't. So why are we doing this?
So when I used to do property settlements, and it's also it plays into, I think, how super funds play into it to an extent as well.
Don't get me started on self-managed super funds. That's a whole fucking podcast by itself.
Quite often people would buy houses under a trust. For various tax reasons. I don't know exactly the math or how it works, but it is a common practice, or was perhaps a common practice. So they're the big three things that the government is saying will affect new first homeowners coming into the market. So the government is saying by changing these things over the next 10 years, they will have 75,000 new first home buyers being able to purchase homes that wouldn't have, in theory, been otherwise been able to.
Great, but that doesn't really touch the sides of the housing crisis, right? That's a drop in the ocean, really.
And part of that logic is that they think given the whole change of capital gains tax, especially, is kicking in until like the 1st of July 2027.
Correct.
Is that people will be like, oh fuck, I better sell that asset now so I only get taxed on half the gain.
Yeah.
So like, oh, maybe there'll be a rush to be selling lots of properties in the next 14 months.
Yeah,
but
and
like,
I
mean,
think
okay,
that's done fairly strategically, but yeah.
Yeah, so
correct.
okay, that doesn't seem to, I don't know, that doesn't make much sense to me, because it also means, hey, the houses are still super expensive, and the kind of debt I'd have to get myself into to afford it is still skyrocketingly stupid. So
the idea overall, right? Looking at the entirety of these changes, is that property investing is less of
it's more risky now.
A non-lose proposition like it was before. As Recorder Residue is saying in our comments, essentially government bails out landlords for making a bad investment. Yeah, that's exactly right. That will no longer be the case, at least from now, starting now. But however, there's still going to be a bunch of people out there that have negatively geared properties and that are property investors and still get the benefit from all of these tax treatments for years, potentially decades to come, because they've grandfathered all of these people in. So I mean, to my mind, I understand why you need to do that. It basically neuters the political argument. It's the political argument that they're thinking of there, where it's like, okay, well, you can't really have a sook about this, property investors.
Yeah, you're softening the blow.
You still get to keep it, so like, shut the fuck up, basically. And I'm also aware that properties over time, as they increase in value, as rents go up, negatively geared properties eventually tend to become positively geared properties anyway. So within sort of 5 to 10 years, you will get this natural phasing out of the benefit. Of course, it does mean that the benefits to the bottom line of the government's budget are also going to be delayed as a result. Like, we're not going to see the real sort of tax raising benefits of this for like 5 to 10 years, right? But it is an important structural change, because I think it is profoundly, manifestly unfair that we are creating a demand subsidy for property which benefits the highest income earners at the expense of everyone else, right? Like, if you can't make money renting out a property, well, maybe you shouldn't buy it, and maybe that property goes onto the market and a first homeowner buys it. If there is, Tom, as you say, a glut of property investors dumping properties because all of a sudden they're not going to be able to rot the tax system in order to, then that's good, because those properties go onto the market. There's more supply. Presumably the price might even adjust downwards ever so slightly with this large increase of properties entering the market, and people might actually be able to afford to buy them to live in them, not for like property investing, right? So
I mean, the government's said a lot of things. I think what this really just does is it puts a handbrake on growth, price growth. It doesn't make them cheaper. It doesn't actually square the ledger. It just stops it getting worse. And again, as you said, George, the effects of this won't be known for 5-10 years, really.
Yeah.
And there will
be a handbrake on the kinds of absurd fucking double-digit year-on-year growth that we've seen in the property market. But you're not going to see a house drop from $1 million to 500,000, and they don't want to do that because that would have other deleterious effects.
That would crash the economy.
That would crash the economy because
the big four would fail.
So much of our economy is tied into housing. 1 in 3 jobs, I think, as we've discussed before. So it's a delicate balance that they need to strike. They need to slow the rate of growth, right? But not so much as to send the price backwards. Not so much as to freak out people who currently own a home, which I would remind you is 60% of the electorate. But they need to undertake these structural changes, to fix what is a fundamental inequity in the tax system. But it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while before it starts actually changing things. That's my criticism of everyone's criticism of it online seems to be, well, I don't get to negatively gear my future investment portfolio. The millennials getting fucked again, and it's like, well, that's
not a fair. But the thing is, though, they're pitching this. This is my take on it. They're pitching this. And we'll talk about the interview with Jim Chalmers in a second.
Yeah.
But they're pitching this to younger voters. Okay, this is obviously we want to talk about intergenerational equity. Okay, sure. But the people that you're trying to pitch this to aren't going to see a benefit prior to the next election. Yeah. So we're going to get to the next election. We're going to go, we're no better off, because we can talk about it in a second. The rest of the budget mechanisms are fairly bland and there's a lot of cost cutting. There is a tax deduction, so we should talk about this. So there is an instant, the sugar hit, if you will, the carrot for this budget is that you'll get an instant $1,000 deduction at your next tax time. Okay, so you put your tax in, you get a deduction.
For work-related expenses is what they're teeing that as, I thought.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it's saying for every worker. So
is my computer a tax-related expense? Is my next graphics card a tax-related work-related expense?
I guess it depends what you use it for.
I think I think it'll be similar to how they've done some of these in the past. They've also flagged this thing in 2028, which is called the waiter or something, which is like a $250 basically reduction in the amount of tax you'll pay.
Yeah.
But that's not for like future. So they haven't. The only thing you're really getting in terms of a government give you something in this is the $1,000 deduction.
So you know what? I wish there was more cost of living relief. Yes, I do. I'm also aware that they are the Labor government is expending a bunch of political capital to get this done. And it is a structural inequity which needs to be reformed. This is something that we as a society cannot continue subsidizing rich people to everyone else's detriment, right? So as we've got Twin Rotors saying in the chat, screw negative gearing and CGT. I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. I care about them. These changes benefit them the most. Yeah, we're talking about the next generation.
Next generation.
We are rectifying
but they're not pitching
generational
it like that.
inequity here, right?
They're not pitching it like that. They're pitching it as you, the voter, are going to see the difference. And there's going to be 75,000 people coming in. And to my mind, and there's some talk about this in the chat, and Jim Chalmers and Albanese have also talked about this. You do also have to increase supply for this equation to work. If you did these changes just on their own, they're actually saying that there'd be a 2% reduction in the amount of housing stock available.
To me, the whole idea of negative gearing is that it encouraged people to build. So if you're going to say, you can negatively gear, but only on new builds, isn't that a much more efficient use of that money?
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
So even if the overall supply diminishes slightly, what we're getting for that, like the efficiency of that money is now much higher because it's being only directed at new builds, which was the entire proposed point of the policy, right? So
I do think there's going to be second and third order effects for particularly for capital gains, because it'll make people think twice about investing, to be honest. But maybe it won't. Maybe a lot of people you're just trading on their apps, don't actually think about it,
or maybe,
and they don't care. But
maybe it actually encourages people to then think about investing in things that actually create productive capacity in the economy,
value,
like businesses, even shares to a certain extent. I think incentivize productive capacity more than property. You investing in the property market doesn't really do anything. Like you're just putting your money in a house that then someone else then needs to rent from you in order to live in. Like it doesn't create anything as far as I can tell, right?
Yeah.
So
I just worry that
you could say that skyrocketing house prices maybe incentivizes developers to get in there and build more houses, but like that's not the track record for the last 25 fucking years. Is we haven't had a shitload of supply coming on the market, right? So
I mean, there are. I mean, you got to, but it's in particular locations. It's the thing is that we need to population distribution is a whole other conversation that I am not going to get into because it's my favorite topic. But look, on the outer fringes of Melbourne, there are suburbs popping up, and same in Sydney, like suburbs popping up left, right, and centre. So negative gearing will help people want to invest in those areas because it's risky to invest in the outer suburbs if you're a rental, because the cost of the property is still quite high, but the amount of rental income you're probably going to get is probably quite low.
Not that substantial,
But I guess my
make this point
concern,
again, for every housing investor that leaves the market, there's a potential for an owner-occupier to move into the market. This is the whole point, right?
Yeah.
So if it results in a much higher proportion, and we know that our generation compared to previous generations has a much lower degree of home ownership, compared to previous generations. So if it means that our generation can actually credibly move into buying our own homes, well, that's a desirable result. If there are less homes overall, but a much higher proportion of home owners, that's probably still a desirable situation for us going forward, right?
And that's the other risk here is with all these changes is that renting will get probably more expensive in the short term.
Well, they've calculated as an increase of $2 a week, but I don't buy that modeling for 1 second.
Have
there's
you
no proof. I mean,
a landlord? Have you met a real estate agent? Have you met literally anyone involved in this process? $2 a week? Are you fucking serious?
Well,
they
this
try
is the
to
thing.
throw in $50 a week, just for laughs,
for fun, for CPI.
This is the thing. This is the thing with property investors. The interest rates go up. And they go, oh, my costs are higher, so I need to raise my rent. Interest rates go down. They don't lower the rent accordingly. They just go, okay, well, I'm just going to keep the difference.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like what petrol prices were like, before, obviously, the war kicked off. Like oil goes up. So, skyrocketing petrol prices. And then, oil's gone down. Yeah, we're just going to still keep petrol up here for a little bit because, then it just trickles down.
The incentivizing, the trying, making this all about profit and making home ownership a locus of investment and making, housing an asset is the key problem here, because no matter what you do, a landlord's going to raise the rent as much as they can to try and realize the maximum profit, right? So it is only by kind of breaking down that structure and sort of saying, okay, housing is shelter. It's not a security.
Need. It's
right. This is something that
commodity, not an investment.
Right. It's only by changing that structure that we're going to have a long-term change in what the housing market looks like. And we may not benefit. Maybe our kids.
I don't think
benefit.
Will be a... that's the thing is, though, I think it just freezes the system and it actually entrenches the current asset class from the people who don't have assets. And I still don't see how, at this stage, that gap gets bridged in the short term.
Well, maybe all of these people...
When I say short term, I mean like, let's say 5 years.
Maybe all of these fucking landlords, rather than putting their money in houses, which is as safe as houses, and even if I lose money, the government's going to fucking give it back to me. Maybe if these people invest in productive capacity in the economy, you'll get what's called
wage
growth,
increases
and you'll get wage increases and real wage growth and things like that. Like, that is the idea, is to deploy... What we've had for the last 20 years is a distortion in the market. I remember reading an article in The Economist fucking 12 years ago about how dangerous these policies were, not just from like a governmental budgetary bottom line, but also in like the way the approach that the center right, The Economist, was coming at it from, was that it's just it's an inefficient allocation of capital, and it's so much capital that we're talking about here. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars,
the Big Four
right?
Have been making fucking crazy profits for the last however long, because it's all housing stock. The Big Four banks in Australia are so wealthy because they are secured by trillions of dollars of Australian mortgages.
Yeah, it's all of this money is currently locked into the housing market. Because why wouldn't it be? It's idiot proof. You get basically risk-free returns, and then you get a nice big juicy capital gain when you sell the property in a couple of years and retire and fucking live your life, right? It makes people rich on paper, so they don't think about it. And so they're not investing all of this. There's so much money. A house is the biggest asset that one will ever likely buy in their entire lives, right? More than a business, more than a car, more than anything else. And so to have all of this financing locked in the housing market and not going into productive capacity, not going into starting businesses, and because the people who now can't afford to pay these house prices are locked into these expensive mortgages or expensive rents, which means they have less disposable income to turn around and start a business. And, like it's really it's like, from a cash flow into the economy perspective, it's really made Australia's capacity for growth and innovation really anemic, because it's starved all of these. You got to think of it that way. There's a pool of money that exists out there. There's 100 money points, and like 80 of them have been locked into housing. So that only leaves 20 money points for fucking everything else, right? So of course we're not growing at fucking 5% year on year every year, because we're not pouring a shitload of that money that we're handing out in the form of negative gearing to property investors. We're not pouring that into investing in smart battery factories with fucking AI robots or whatever the Chinese are doing right now. We're not doing any of that stuff, because all of that money is going out the door for this bullshit.
or if it is, it's going into American companies or Chinese companies or whatever. But the problem is politically they've tied themselves to this now, and I think it's going to bite Labor in the arse very hard.
Well, it's because they're pivoting to communism. If you ask any center to or right wing media, it's communism.
Can one of you flash up that Daily Telegraph headline that you pulled the other day?
I'll grab it.
You go have a look at that.
The Murdoch press went into a
heart
attack.
Went in fucking hard, bro.
Oh, they lost their absolute shit.
While you do that, Tom,
amazing.
We're going to play the first couple of minutes of the Sarah Ferguson interview because I found it fucking maddening. Okay,
so this is the first interview after he does his announcement, right?
Yeah, so he literally does the budget, right? Yeah. Does the announcement. And then, minutes later, steps into the 7:30 studio with Sarah Ferguson, who I guess owns a bunch of properties. So that's the way she's talking. And then they have this interview where basically she just goes at him for, broken promises for, I want to say, 12 minutes of a 17-minute interview. So let's have a listen to the first couple of minutes, see if we can stomach it.
The Treasurer has made his way from the floor of the House of Representatives to the studio and joins me now. Congratulations on the budget and welcome.
Thanks very much, Sarah.
As Jacob just pointed out, negative gearing capital gains, the Prime Minister categorically ruled out these changes before the election. Will you first acknowledge the broken promises and then we can talk about why?
Yes, I acknowledge that the government's come to a different view about some really important policy areas. The comments and commitments we made at the election reflected the government's almost singular focus on housing supply. We're maintaining that focus on supply. But the challenge begins there, it doesn't end there with supply. We also need to take these decisive steps, these contentious steps to rebalance the tax system, because the interaction of the housing market and the tax system is locking too many Australians, particularly young Australians, out.
No acknowledgement of broken promises, despite the fact that they are blindingly obvious to everybody watching.
What the fuck?
Breaking ironclad election promises so blatantly, you must have spent a long time calculating the consequences. When did you decide that the rewards outweighed the risks?
Well, I think it's important to see these changes for the substance of the changes, not the politics of the changes.
There's always politics as well, Treasurer.
Well, this decision was taken in recent weeks. It was taken relatively late in the budget process. And it was taken because we became increasingly of the view that the focus on supply, which is still the main game when it comes to the housing market, was not enough to deal with some of these intergenerational issues in particular when it comes to housing. Now, obviously, we are aware that people who want to defend the current tax arrangements or they think that the current housing market is working just fine, they will want to focus on this element of it, the political element of it. I understand that. Obviously, that doesn't come as a massive surprise to me. But we're focused on the substantive issue, the substantive change. We've come to a different view on these policy areas. We're explaining to the Australian people why.
You just said recent weeks. The decision to make these major changes to negative gearing, trusts and capital gains was made in recent weeks. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is what I'm saying. The
how many
Expenditure Review Committee finalises the budget in the usual way towards the end of April, sometimes the beginning of May. Obviously, this has involved a fair amount of work, but the decision was taken in recent weeks to make this policy change. And more than deciding this policy change and the substantive difference that we hope to make, encouraging another 75,000 Australians into the housing market over the next decade, rebalancing the playing field when it comes to housing and tax. Obviously, we know that that invites an element of political risk. Obviously, these changes have been contentious for some time. And so you asked me before, would I acknowledge that we've come to this different view? We have.
But we've come to this. The question was about broken promises.
Well, we've come to this different view for very good reasons, and I'm here to explain to your view as well.
Yep. Now, you are presenting this as a major change, quite reasonably, rebalancing the system, the whole system, in favour of workers and in particular young people. But how do you justify not doing that before the election where the conditions were not materially different to where they are now?
Well, the commitments we made at the election, as I said, were overwhelmingly about investing more than $40 billion in housing supply.
The Prime Minister ruling out these changes.
Yeah, but that reflected our focus at the time, which was almost exclusively on supply plus the 5% deposits. And they were the positions that we held at the time. It's become increasingly clear to us that if we continue to kick the can down the road on some of these difficult policy changes, which have been ignored in our tax system and our housing market for too long, then that would make life harder and lock more Australians out of the system. And so we had a choice. I mean, fundamentally, this budget was a choice. Do we use what's happening in the Middle East as a reason to do less, to just focus on fuel security and some of the near-term measures? Or do we understand that all of this global volatility and uncertainty is a reason to accelerate reform, to act with more decisiveness and more urgency? And we decided on the latter path, and I'm proud that we did. And I know that there will be, of course, there will be people who want to focus on the commitments we made at the election. I understand that.
But it's not just that you accept it, that it's reasonable. As I said before, the conditions that existed before the election are not materially different now in terms of the difficulty of obtaining housing. Why did it take a war in the Middle East to make you reset your policies so drastically?
Well, it's another year of too many people getting locked out of the market and some of these challenges.
But you accept there's no substantial change in terms of the locking out of the market between now and 12 months ago at the time?
Well, we became increasingly of the view that some of these other challenges which go beyond supply, they go to the composition of the market, they go to the fact that tax policy settings have had, I think, a negative impact on the housing market. When these policies were changed in 1999, it fundamentally distorted the way that investment happens in this country, encouraged people to pile into existing housing, pushed prices up, locked people out of the housing market, particularly younger people. And so we've had another year of that. And these challenges will become more and more serious if we neglect them for longer. And that's why we came to a different view and changed our policy.
In the end.
So, I mean, this goes on for another couple of minutes with her sort of, trying to bash him on broken promises. They then engage in just under 10 minutes of actual policy discussion, talking about housing supply modelling, the grandfathering in of negative gearing and how that's going to work, rent pressures, inflation, net migration figures, the NDIS, and productivity growth. And then at 16:20, Sarah decides to bookend this discussion by pivoting back to the absolutely essential point of whether Jim Chalmers broke his promise and is a piece of shit.
Standards and wages over time.
I just want to loop back to the idea of promises and integrity. Do you accept that even if these changes are very well received amongst young voters, no one will believe a promise from this government ever again?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I think that the most important thing, genuinely, is if we come to a different view, we explain why. And the most important thing beyond that...
help if you acknowledge that these were broken promises. It's such a simple formulation that you keep avoiding.
Well, I don't think I have. I mean, I've taken responsibility for the fact that the government has a different view now than it had 12 months ago. I do take responsibility for that, and that's because I've come to a different view on these policy changes. I'm explaining why. But more important than any of that, let's not lose sight of the actual issue that we are addressing here. Now, the easiest thing in the world would have been for me to sit here and rationalise to you why we hadn't made any of these changes. That would have been so much easier than explaining why we have, but it wouldn't have been the right outcome. For 75,000 Australians who would stay locked out of the housing market, it wouldn't have been the right outcome for workers who continue to be treated in an inferior way to people who make their income in other ways legitimately in our economy. And so I'd rather make the difficult decision and explain why than take the easy decision and escape some of these questions.
Treasurer, congratulations again on your fifth budget, and thank you very much indeed.
Congratulations
that was like you've got two of those voice ChatGPT agents, and you've told one of them you got to keep saying how you came to the decision and like you're making the difficult choice and you're explaining why, and the other one is you have to get the other agent on a gotcha about breaking promises, and they just were in a constant loop with their own instruction files. This being like back and forth, being like, give up, stop already.
So I
like,
literally, I took the time-stamped transcript out of this. Okay, the YouTube, has their automatically generated captions with timestamps. I wanted to know how much of this discussion did they spend fucking around on this issue of broken promises and trust. And it was just under 43% of the interview was dedicated to this, right? Jesus. So if we look at the timestamps, 0 to 6:20, all about fucking broken promises. We didn't even play all of it. Substantive policy discussion, 6:20 to 16:20. Again, some of it goes back to the negative gearing policies and her challenging him on that as well. And then the last minute and 17 seconds, 16:20 to 17:37, again, bookending the interview with, is anyone going to ever trust you again because you're a lying piece of shit? Like, the whole framing of the interview is around distrust, right? The key with interviewing on television, I don't need to say this to Sarah Ferguson, she's been at it for donkey's years, but in broadcast journalism, the first 5 minutes are obviously critical for setting the audience's understanding of an issue, because people know that, people are half listening, okay? They'll tune in for the first 5 minutes. They go, yeah, I think I'll level set. I'll get the understanding of the issue, and then I'll keep washing the dishes, or I'll just fucking tune out. Her refusal to continually accept the premise that this was like a political horse race issue rather than engaging in the substantive policy discussion meant that the audience is then positioned alongside her to keep questioning him, keep doubting him. And then by bookending the end of the interview with, how's the Australian public ever going to trust you again? She's then leaving the audience with the recency effect. What's the most recent thing that they heard? Is that broken promises, can't trust Labor, right? So, like, Angus Taylor himself, the opposition leader, could not have conducted a better smear interview than what Sarah Ferguson has just done on 7:30 immediately post the budget. And it's infuriating to me because the right wing always attacks the ABC as like, the left communist ABC, they're all a bunch of leftards over there. We need to destroy the ABC. It's too leftist. And this interview basically left me wondering, how many properties does Sarah Ferguson own? Is she negatively gearing a bunch of these properties? Is she personally pissed about this? Because I don't see any other reason that she would be going this hard against Jim Chalmers. Yeah. It's the whole thing, and everything in the media this whole week has been broken promises, Labor spending, Labor, broken promises. How could you ever trust them again? It's a cash grab. And it talks about none of the substantive policy stuff that we've just discussed. Most people don't even understand the detail of negative gearing and capital gains tax. They don't even have the context with which to appreciate this discussion. And yet, the main thing that they'll come away with is Jim Chalmers is a lying piece of shit. It's so fucking immensely disingenuous. It's vomitous. I was screaming at my phone watching this live. I'm spitting. I've got spittle coming out.
So she interviewed... what's his name? Tim Wilson after this, and she also roasted him as well. So to her credit, she did do it to both sides. The other aspect is she got Albanese in the next day and basically did the same dance with him about broken promises, come to a different view. Yeah. What I found interesting was they've media trained this to the nth degree.
Oh, Chalmers is lying about, it's about me fronting up to you and come to a different view. You can tell it was media trained out the arse for this, yes.
And Chalmers have both said the same thing 2 days apart. Like, it's, they were saying it in the House of Reps as well during question time. Like this is, they have been thinking, yes, it's been a couple of weeks, but they have gone into the announcement of this very carefully in terms of how they've said it. But this is also based on previous experiences. Like, Labor has learnt from the previous election losses. They've learnt from...
Oh, when they brought these policies to the election and then got fucking shellacked, so they said, we're not going to fucking do that again. Absolutely not.
They've also learnt from, Joe Hockey in 2014, where he didn't really own the where he didn't really own the choice and was sort of deflected it, and then they roasted
the choice on what? In 2014? What was that?
In 2014, when they raised the budget... Sarah, they basically asked him as well, and they were like, you've lied. And he was like, yeah, nah, I haven't.
Nah, don't worry about it. Poor people don't even drive cars.
The 7:30 report interview immediately after that budget to Joe Hockey, the opening question was, when did you decide election promises don't matter?
Yeah.
I remember that interview incredibly strongly. So that's what I was going to bring up.
I'm not saying that journalists shouldn't challenge. They should.
Is that because they're in the business of listening to statements from people. So the people giving, like, given journalists report on the announcements of be the politicians, companies, or from people or whatever, and approaching things with a varying degree of scrutiny, when they get some strong evidence that they can't believe what someone says, they go on it. They go on it so hard.
David,
but like, we're all fucking grown-ups, right? We understand the world changes, things change. You can't possibly bring every single policy with complete clarity about exactly what's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years to the election, before the election. Obviously, governments need to be agile. They need to be responsive. I get that this is very much at odds with what they were saying before the election when they said, no, we're not going to touch negative gearing. And now they are touching negative gearing. It deserves a question. But the framing of it from her was very aggressive. It wasn't like, okay, well, you've made numerous statements prior to the election saying that you weren't going to touch it. What's changed since then?
Yeah, it's why
that's a very neutral framing compared to, how come you're a lying sack of shit, Jar?
Yeah,
Chavez, why? What's going on with you being a fucking untrustworthy cunt? Like,
well, a lot of the things that she picked up on, I was like, that's actually very good. It's good that you picked up on that. That's exactly what I would have picked up on talking to him as well. In that, like, her opening up that interview with, you broke a promise, and then he said the media trained line, and then said, so that's a no on the broken promises question. I was like, yeah, fuck off, Sarah, that's terrible. But when he let slip, we made this decision mere weeks ago. That's big a thing to pick up on, to be like, wow, that's a sudden thing. But then
but that's when the budget gets put together, is weeks before the budget, right? Well, that's when you make decisions about, you model things out in the months leading up to it, you put it all together, you run different scenarios, and then you make a decision weeks before the budget as to what the budget's going to be, and then you release it. You're just describing process.
My point there is that what he was seeming to admit to, and is what she was pushing him on, was, wait, so were you not even considering touching negative gearing or anything
until
like that
weeks
as a policy
ago.
Until weeks ago? Because that is that's relevant information. But then also pushing him on the point, she pushed this one too hard, I thought, because he gave his answer and you realized you weren't going to maybe get the gotcha that you wanted. But the point that why'd you waited until there was a catastrophe in the Middle East before thinking you had the political capital to do this? Like, if the market conditions were the same before the election as they are now, like, trying to get him to essentially admit, we got shit canned the last time we said we'd do this. We are only doing it now because you can't shit can us immediately.
Because it's politically convenient.
Because if you get that admission out of a politician as a journalist, boom, Walkley, baby. So
this is what we wanted to do the whole time, and we were waiting for the right moment. Like, there's a couple of things going on here around, clearly, Labor brought these policies to a previous election. It's something that they wanted to do. Like, okay, maybe you can make a meal out of the fact that they said they weren't going to do it, and now they are.
Oh, yeah.
But there was really no substantive discussion at all during this piece about whether these were good changes. Like it really frustrates me that there's no substantive analysis on not just describing the policy, making sure the audience understands it in detail.
How does your modeling work?
But how do we get there? How do we arrive at, this? What's the benefit going to be? What are the trade-offs? What are the, I would really just much rather than trying to get this gotcha moment of fucking roasted the treasurer, gotcha cunt. Rather than that, actually have a bit of explanatory journalism and talk about the effect of the policy, because that's what's going to make a difference to people's lives. There seems to be at no point any willingness from the media to engage in the substance of the policy. And I know that he just delivered his budget speech, but they've had access to it for whatever it is for some time before that. They've got a team working on it, right? So it's not as though they just walked on air and she's gone, oh, fuck, where are my papers? I got to, oh, fuck, Mr. Jim Chalmers. Like obviously she's prepped for this in some way, but it seems like the media is much more interested in covering the political horse race than it is about actually discussing the policy. And the budget is kind of the one time of the year where it's kind of just about the policy. It's not about the horse race. So it's very frustrating to me that we seem to be locked into this media cycle where it's like, Labour spends too much and the Liberals want to spend less and the taxes are high and the taxes are low. And it's like, is this really the bandwidth of acceptable political? Yeah, you a winner or loser. Is that the level the very small window of analysis that we as the Australian public are entitled to. Like,
yes.
I mean, I was the one calling earlier that I want it to be shorter. Just tell me if it's better or not. But I will listen to the more in-depth concepts as we move on there. But I think the other angle of this that I think is disingenuous from Sarah Ferguson, and then also the other reporting around.
I like her normally. She's normally good, but
anyway. Is that I think I've probably said this on the show before. I can't remember in what context it would have been. Maybe on a previous budget roundup.
We've done enough of it.
But is the fact that what is the point of like good reporting, the Fourth Estate, or heck, even activism or campaigning to your to people in politics, to people in business, to people anywhere, if like they're not allowed to change their minds without being called huge pieces of shit. Like, you know,
policy should be based on circumstance.
Yeah,
on the
if
facts.
We have all been
is
wanting...
it good policy? Does it help people? Does it make their lives better? That is what the government is there to do. If policy doesn't do that, then it should be fucking done away with, right? Which is exactly what they just did. And she even admits, the younger people in our audience everyone's going to listen to this and they might love it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, but like, how are they ever going to trust you again? It's like, okay, but like, shouldn't we be talking about like a policy change that most young people who are now going to be the majority of the electorate going forward, given the demographic shifts, like giving people policy that they want? That's like how you win elections, right? Like, you know, shouldn't that be the discussion? Is like whether people want this or not, whether it's a good change or not, which she even admits.
Yeah, well, which is why I think going into it, the way I would have gone into something like that would have been to ask that question like she did of, you said you weren't going to do this and now you're doing it. And he gave, I think, a pretty good answer as to being like, well, like, even though media trained out the arse, we've changed our view on this for X, Y, Z reasons. Then, that whole thing of like what's at the start of the interview and then what book ends it at the end and what people are going to take away from it is that, hey, to borrow a phrase from a huge asshole, we listened, we learned, and we acted. Is why this happened.
I think he explained it well in the end. Like he sort of got across the fact that there was, creating an asset class that was untouchable and that's not sustainable. Like,
and they've built up political capital. They won their fucking supermajority. They're in their second term. If not now to spend the political capital that you've accrued, then when?
Yeah.
Right?
The issue,
and they see One Nation, and they see, the by-election in Farah that just happened, where One Nation, sort of walked away with a seat that was safe Liberal territory for the last fucking 30 years or whatever it was. They can see the cost of living crisis. They can see what's happening with Iran. They can model what's happening with inflation, or what's likely to happen with inflation if this thing in Iran keeps dragging on, and the effect that that's going to have. Michelle Bullock got out there and said, don't do any cost of living reform or I'll slap you with more interest rate rises. And they saw all that and they've taken that all in and gone, okay, well, we need something pretty big, right? We need something that's going to be a generational reform in order to actually convince voters not to leave us in droves for the political extremes. So it's also a political expediency thing as well. Like, they need to do something big because they've seen what's just happened with Labor over in the UK in the local council elections. Labor has just been eviscerated, lost 1,400 local council seats. Keir Starmer's having an existential crisis on a minute-by-minute basis. The head of lettuce is out for Keir Starmer. To quote, what was it, the Liz Truss?
Truss, yeah.
So Labor is also making a political calculation with this budget as well. We can't do too much cost of living relief because that's going to hurt us. It'll show up in inflation. We can't, we're up against it with One Nation and these far right parties, but we need to do something big. We need to do something bold and structural to show working Australians that we're on their side. We can't be kowtowing to the capital class anymore. So what can we do? So it's a combination of all those various factors. I would note that at no point do any of these journalists ever say to Twin Rota's point in the chat, I would have said, why are you open to breaking promises to the Australian people but not the gas lobby? Love that. But
they're not.
But why
are
they never concerned? They said, this is the budget that we're taking forward for military spending. And then in the National Defence Strategy fucking 2 weeks ago, they go, actually, we're going to spend a couple billion more. Actually, we're going to cut the equivalent amount out of the NDIS. Why is there never this line of questioning? Well, broken promises. You said you were going to protect the NDIS, or you said you weren't going to spend more on the military. Why are you spending an extra $14 billion over the forward estimates on the military? Why is that? Can you explain yourself? It's only ever to do with, like, you know, rich people fucking tax concessions that the government gets this kind of broken promises treatment. Have you noticed that? Whenever they start going after rich people's money, then all of a sudden it's broken promises. You can't trust them. Labor's tax and spend. Labor. Debt, deficit. It's a fucking LMP talking point that she's reiterating here.
Yeah, what is Gina Reinhardt paid for, if not this kind of scrutiny?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, yeah, a lot of people were saying, you know, why aren't we taxing the gas on the tax companies would fix everything. I mean, the issue is it's timing, right? I think they would do that, but they are using that as leverage to guarantee fuel supply. So if you want to pay more
with the PIRT you're talking about,
correct. So a lot of people are saying, oh, we're not doing enough, but like you need to understand that we are going to be in a fucked situation with not just fuel supply, but like all imports into Australia for the next 2-3 years. It's going to be COVID all over again, COVID-related supply shocks. So no, we can't just go and fuck the system and upheave it in the middle of a crisis, because
I mean, they've more or less even said, like, we want to do it, but just not right now. Like,
exactly. They will do it. They're just saying, because the one bargaining chip is, we'll give you 5 loads of gas. Now, this is a good point. It was announced in the lead up to Budget Week. We didn't record last week because various reasons, but
George was having a little mental health crisis. That's why George was having a Menti B on the pod. It wasn't
but
a great
also
look.
like a lot of it was just stuff that they were pre-announcing. Like they did a lot of pre-announcing before the budget. One of the things they announced is
they float balloons.
They have made it where they're going to force gas companies to, I think it's keep about 20% of their supply onshore, which is actually a huge fucking change.
Massive change.
The gas companies are not happy about it. So, you know, it is a balance. As we said, the budget is a balance. Political maneuver is a balance. I think Sarah's point is you're doing this because it's politically convenient. If it wasn't politically convenient, you wouldn't be so bold. But I mean, that's politics, right?
But then say that. Like, obviously, he's going to dodge. He's the treasurer. That's his job. But then say that. You know, pose the question to him. Are you just doing this because it's easy for you to do it right now, and you've always kind of wanted to do this? And he'll say, no, it's because we looked at the graphs and we had a change. We've come to a new understanding, and we think this is what's best.
And
for the
then you make
country.
the decision whether or not you want to dedicate the whole interview to try and get that soundbite, or do you give up?
You've got 18 minutes with the treasurer. Okay, you've got like 3 major areas you can ding him on. What are you going to spend your time on fucking budget night to talk about? Yeah. And we're going to talk about broken promises for fucking 45%.
And then she did it. And then she did it the next day as well.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, David Spears does
exhausting.
But it's about the moment. Now we need to move on. Angus Taylor, of course.
No, let's sit in this moment forever.
There's a whole bunch of other shit they announced in the budget. To be clear, that wasn't the entire budget. There was some other stuff in there. Cuts in a lot of different places.
That's the big thing. Yeah, the NDIS cuts, which we've talked about as well.
But not just that, but like they got rid of like they've made private healthcare more expensive for older Australians. Like there's all these other things they've done as well, which are in the budget. But this is the key point. The Murdoch media are going through this line by line and pulling out all these things and throwing that into the wash. This is my point, and I've said it before. This is a bold budget, and they've spent the political capital. But the question I've got is, particularly given what's happening globally with the anti-establishment sort of mindset that's going on, how much is this actually going to cost them next election? And we can talk about Farah in a second, but like that's a good example of people just not trusting the system because the system isn't working for them. This budget, I'd argue, doesn't improve the system. And actually, what I'm saying here, what I'm getting at, this is my point. This actually just plays into One Nation's hands, this budget. And it actually makes...
It's a big claim. Is that a social media claim? Is that...
No, this
are you raising
plays
a big red flag here so I clip this for the comments so we get fucking roasted?
Not that you've said it. This actually plays into One Nation's hands politically because the benefits are not short-term. People's lives are not going to get easier under this budget. all they've got are broken promises. This is going to swing voters away from the establishment. Now, look, maybe
anyone who was on the fence or like maybe leaning that way anyway. But yeah, you're right.
I agree that this is not a budget that massively improves the material circumstances of working Australians right now. I agree with that. And I agree that in the discombobulation deliberately caused by News Corp, that, One Nation's probably going to be the chief beneficiary of that. However, and I will die on this hill, it's better policy. I'm sorry. Yeah. It simply is. It is better for our budget. It's better for future generations. It will help.
I don't not like the policy. I'm just saying politically, I don't know whether this is going to pay off for them the way they think it is.
Well, you got to shoot your shot sometime. You can't. You get little dimples in your bum from sitting on the fence the whole time. You got to swing for the fences, man. I don't know what to tell you. It's bad policy. Negative gearing, capital gains tax discounts, family trusts, all of these fucking tax shelters.
But my point is,
bad policy, and they should have gone 20 years ago.
In a different way is my point. Don't tell people you're going to be better off under these changes when they're not.
I think it's also just a function of the media cycle and the media environment. You know, like Jim Chalmers could have put a golden goose on the fucking table at the budget, and the Murdoch media would have still been out there this week going, Jim Chalmers thinks you should eat fucking goose for dinner. What a prick. Like, you know, it doesn't matter what they put out there. They're going to get dinged anyway by this news cycle. So you may as well. This is what I've been encouraging. Don't tell them to back down now. This is what I've been encouraging them to do. Fucking swing for the fences. Spend your political capital. Improve the material circumstances of people's lives. Address structural inequality. Not with immediacy. That's the problem.
No. Yes,
I agree.
Not in the short term.
Anyway, Angus Taylor, though, he had his budget reply.
What a dumb cunt.
Yeah.
What a
they really took this all in, politically analysed it, really thought through the ins and outs of how they could appeal to the voters, get back to the centre and listen to everything that's happened in the recent by-election of Farrer when they got their shit pushed in. They've really thought about all this and made a bold move to, we're going to cap migration, boost house, lower taxes, okay. All right, lower taxes is good. But the number one thing is they want to cap migrants.
But will they actually deliver on lower taxes? History says no. I say this, like, I don't say this lightly. Like, Angus Taylor is such a fucking piece of shit. Like, everything he talks about here, the perspective that he speaks from, the manner in which he says it, the complete lack of vision that he presents to the Australian people.
That's the thing. There's no evidence what they're saying.
He's just such a cunt. Okay, let's listen to this cunt talk for a couple of minutes, I guess.
To Australians watching.
Oh, hang on. I've got the speed set too high. I was banging through it earlier. All right. What time is it? 1 hour 2. Okay.
Thank you for your time. Tonight, I want to tell you about my vision for a fairer, freer and better Australia for all. An Australia where life is affordable. An Australia where we have cheap and abundant energy. An Australia where industries thrive and businesses boom. An Australia where we innovate, make and build things of ambition and farm, mine and drill with determination.
Just lots of sweaty men with dirt on their hands getting VBs.
An Australia where a single income earner on an ordinary wage has enough for a home deposit and to pay off a mortgage steadily over time.
Except you cunts were in office for a decade and did the opposite of all of these things. I want a one income earner to be able to afford to pay for a whole household and pop out lots of white nationalist babies. Except when you guys were in power, you immeasurably made everyone's material circumstances much, much worse. So what the fuck are you talking about?
An Australia where a mum or dad can afford to take time away from work to do the most worthwhile thing in life, raise a child. Yeah. An Australia where those we welcome to our shores are all determined to embrace our values, to work hard, to contribute to this nation, to become Australian.
Assimilation, leave your fucking dirty ethnic cultures at home and become a fucking white person like the rest of us.
An Australia where we have confidence in our nation's future. An Australia where we have hope and optimism.
Okay, how are you going to do that, Angus? Jesus
This
Christ.
isn't the Australia we know today.
Oh, we're just going to have an
Can we just-
optimism line item in the budget. Fucking idiot.
Can we just talk about what they're actually proposing? Like, I'm not interested in these fucking talking points.
So with
'cause
just the
none
first
of
couple
it
of minutes,
fucking lines
just the
up.
first couple of minutes, just to show how fucking devoid of anything it is. I know it's painful. That's why I watched it at 1.5 times speed initially.
But we have known it, and we can know it again. We can restore our standard of living, and we can protect our way of life.
Way of life.
Now, that starts by fighting against the assault on aspiration at the heart of Labor's budget.
And I really think that this is why the Liberals did so well for so long, is that Labor was always framed in terms of redistribution. They want to take your hard-earned money and give it to the fucking dole bludgers, right? Whereas the Liberals were always framed in terms of aspiration and growth and wealth. You too can be a property investor and have and negatively gear your portfolio one day. You can be fucking Mr. Moneybags if you just vote.
We're all future millionaires.
Exactly.
Labor is locking out young Australians from the opportunities afforded to older Australians to build wealth and prosperity and to get ahead.
There you go. Build wealth.
This Prime Minister is one of many Australians who has benefited from these opportunities. Now he's pulling up the ladder of opportunity for the next generation. Not only by whacking higher taxes on housing, but also on their savings, investments, and small businesses. When government whacks a tax on something,
Wax attacks.
you get less of it. Less housing, less savings, less investment, and less small business for the next generation.
Not less small business.
Labor's budget isn't intergenerational fairness, it's intergenerational fraud. Their budget...
Oh, that line tested
Yeah,
well.
were you up all night thinking of that one?
Got to bed around 2:30. What a fucking idiot.
is also an attack on every Australian. As Labor's own budget papers state, its tax hikes will reduce the number of houses available for young Australians to buy or to rent. Labor's negative gearing changes will hand over housing investment to multinationals and foreign pension funds. Labor's increase to the capital gains tax will discourage the investment Australia needs to grow. And Labor's small business tax will punish small and family businesses that are already working harder than ever and collapsing at record rates. The Treasurer's higher taxes aren't economic reform. They're an assault on aspiration. They're an attack on the wealth creation that benefits all. They will crush the reward for hard work spirit that underpins our nation's success.
Yeah, the reward for hard work thing is certainly not any of us in our generation have ever experienced. Twin Voters is saying in the chat, aspiration equals rich people. I just want to keep on for one more minute because he targets migrants and clean energy in a second. I think it's really important to show the framing of all of that. Just honestly, just bear with me one more minute, mate. Just one more fucking minute of Angus Taylor talking.
Already left his body.
I know. He talks so slow. It's infuriating. Fucking get the words per minute up, Angus, for fuck's sakes. You're reading.
Hurry up! Press play!
And so the Coalition will fight like hell to prevent Labor's toxic taxes from becoming law. But if they do, I commit that a coalition government I lead will repeal them. Now, there's a simple reason why Labor has broken its core election promises.
Broken promises.
This incompetent government has lost control of its spending. When Labor runs out of its money, it comes after yours.
Such old lines, bro.
Intergenerational theft isn't caused by older Australians. It's been caused by the Albanese government. Labor's reckless spending will soon see our country with $1 trillion of debt. The only way to get debt down is to throw out this bad government. Now, to know a fairer, freer and better Australia, we also need something that's been missing for too long, and that's honesty. Honesty about what's holding Australia back and leaving Australians behind. First, mass migration is changing Australia for the worse.
It's them immigrants.
The number of people coming in far exceeds the number of houses built. Consequently, the great Australian dream of home ownership is vanishing for old and new Australians alike. Across its 2 terms, Labor will have brought in 2 million people. That includes 90,000 more than planned in the next 2 years. By inviting in too many people too quickly, we've also seen some come with the wrong values.
The wrong values.
People who don't want to join and embrace Australia, but people who want to change Australia to suit them. We saw this with the Bondi tragedy, inspired by radical and violent Islam.
It's Anthony Albanese's
Second,
fault. Yeah. Perfect.
Prioritising net zero and emissions reduction above all else has seen cheap, always-on power dismissed for expensive, sometimes-on, industrial-scale renewables, mainly sourced from offshore.
Okay, that's enough. There's so many things there. I really just want to do like a whole fucking hour-long breakdown of Angus Taylor and all of the wrong things that he said there, talking about Labor's debt and deficit and government spending, and Labor's trying to steal. They're both trying to raise revenue through taxes, but also worse on the balance sheet, which they're getting more taxes in for. So if you look at who raised, who did the most spending, well, it was the Abbott, Turnbull, Morrison governments. They've done the most spending since like fucking Whitlam, right? In terms of percentage of GDP that was outlined, during COVID.
That's not technically what he said, though.
No, I know.
This
but
is the politics of it, right?
The only 2 governments that have turned a surplus since fucking John Howard have been the last 2, the Albanese governments. Yeah. But they're looking ahead, looking at the budgets going forward, looking at the rise in spending, and they can see the budget problem. We're in a structural deficit that's not going to get fixed. That's part of why they're making all of these changes, is because they can see what's coming. Yeah. If you look at the budget estimates for the next, for the next 4 years, we'll turn a surplus or 2, and then it's structural deficits from here on out. And then 10 years from now, they go, and then it all turns around and that it's okay.
The budget reply speech itself is always going to be political. What are they actually talking about here? But what they want to do is cap migrant numbers to the number of houses that are being built.
Just an explicitly racist policy that would destroy the fucking economy.
The concept being is you build one house, you can let one migrant in, and whether what they mean by in, like letting them in, what visa they're on, like it's not very clear. There's no detail in it. There's no modelling to this.
It would destroy the university sector. It would destroy consumption. The thing is, he's right about one thing. He says Labor's riding high on the growth of the economy that we've got from bringing in external migration. And it's like, well, yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Everyone. But
you're describing growth, Angus. That's what growth is when you have more customers, then people create businesses to sell things to consumers. Yeah. So whether those consumers come from India or Bangladesh or China, or whether they're homegrown, it makes no fucking difference whatsoever. And to express anything otherwise is just explicitly racist, jingoistic bullshit, right?
And when we go into a recession, which is, if you cut migration down to the levels that they're talking,
it would cause a recession just by itself. That's what I mean. The university sector is propped up. The university sector exists on foreign students.
Which is like the 3rd biggest industry or something in Australia, or whatever the stat is. The other thing is like, you need, like, there's also a skill shortage in Australia in key sectors.
Right. So where are you going to get the skills from if we haven't trained the fucking people up?
And if you remember in COVID, when they stopped all the migration, all of a sudden there were a lot of people in industries that they had that all of a sudden weren't there anymore.
And what happened? Wages
painters,
skyrocketed.
Fruit pickers.
Wages skyrocketed.
Nurses,
and it caused all of this inflation because all of a sudden there wasn't this cheap pool of labor that you could compete against, right? So so all of a sudden people, employees for their first time in their lives, some of them professionally, were in a stronger bargaining position, which meant they could demand 3, 5, 7% wage increases. And what happened? And then we get the inflation that comes along with that, because then there's more money in the economy, people have more capacity, they can buy more stuff, and then you have this durable, sticky inflation, which we were dealing with still before this fucking Iran crisis kicked in.
It also
so
just
are you really
reduces
saying that
productivity as well.
it reduces productivity, right? Because you have to pay people more to get the same amount of stuff. So he's talking about stuff which either he doesn't fucking understand because he's dumb as a box of rocks, or he's a fucking liar. Those are the only options.
I think option one, based on previous history. The other thing they've talked about is indexing tax to inflation. Now, this would reduce or remove bracket creep as a concept. I don't want to get into bracket creep. Just Google bracket creep.
It's just the idea that the tax brackets stay the same, but with inflation going up, you earn more and more every year. So you move up into higher tax brackets over time. So you end up paying more tax, even though you're earning more money. It doesn't keep pace with.
This policy is effectively a tax cut, right, for people. But the problem is then the government's bringing in less money.
How are you going to pay for it?
How are you going
to reduce structural deficit, cunt?
I don't know.
How are you going to pay for it?
This is the other one that I can't stand, is restricting welfare to non-citizens. So
that is explicitly fucking racist. Sorry if you're disabled, you don't get the NDIS if you're not a fucking citizen. What the fuck?
Because keep in mind, permanent residents do get some benefits if you're a permanent resident. I can't remember exactly. It's not a full suite, but you do. I think you get Medicare and some other bits and pieces as well.
Yeah, you can't vote.
Let's just snip the whole social safety net for anyone who's not a citizen. I'm sure that won't have terrifying consequences going forward when these people become homeless, or when these people become destitute, or
just when people start dying, or like having
or just age,
whatever.
Like if someone's a permanent resident but not a citizen, and they grow old, like, they are permanently residing here, that would presume into their old age,
even if you're not old. It's crazy. The thing that this Malacca doesn't understand is that the social safety net is there for the benefit of our society. If you get a job, right, and you have a job and then you lose that job, the safety net is there to make sure that your life is not immiserated as a result, that you can collect some welfare for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you get retrained, you get back into the workforce, huzzah, you're a consumer again, you become a productive member of society, you resume paying taxes, right? And then the government doesn't have to spend a shitload of money on services, which are much more expensive, to get you out of homelessness or whatever. If you just cut all of these services for anyone who's not a citizen, well, guess what? You're going to have a permanent fucking underclass of people who aren't going to be able to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and just work harder. You're just going to have an underclass of people that are permanently immiserated, for whom it is much more expensive from the government to provide them with the services that they need in order to not die. So the government safety net doesn't exist because we're fucking kind and generous. It exists because it allows people to bounce back and gets them back off the government balance sheet in the shortest amount of time possible.
It also means that, crisis centers aren't fucking overwhelmed and whatever else. So that's, I can't believe they fucking
fuck them. I guess is the Liberal Party's position. Fuck them because they're not citizens. Go fuck yourself, Angus Taylor, 2026.
A $5 billion housing infrastructure fund to boost supply of housing and to reduce red tape. But that's kind of similar to what Labor's doing.
So much fucking supply. Anyway, the supply all over my face.
You can announce money, but the issue is if you haven't got people to build the houses. Oh wait, you've just cut immigration. There are still labour shortages in the construction sector, which is why Labor's investment that they've already made is going slowly, because turns out you can't just flip a switch and make more houses.
I'm losing my fucking mind.
Anyway. And they also want to, of course, lift the ban on nuclear.
Nuclear is coming back.
Oh yeah, why not? Fucking why not? Sure, it was such a good idea last time, cunt.
Yeah, I saw we've listened nuclear, and I'm like, oh my guy.
We've listened. We've learned from the last election and our thumping electoral defeat, where people thought nuclear was the worst possible policy in the world, and we're going to stick with it because that's what they want.
It's neither here nor there, but the call to ditch net zero is like an extermination level event for the fucking world. If countries around the world decide to start going down that path. the addition of additional renewable resources in terms of energy production does not make energy more expensive or less reliable. It obviously has the complete opposite fucking effect. You fucking moron. If there's more supply going in, you should be able to understand this with your third grade fucking economics, Angus. If there's more supply that comes into the system and the demand is the same, what happens to prices, Angus? They go down.
Politically, that may work for them, but none of that's modelled. None of that has any, rationaling behind it. They've just put some talking points together to try and fend off One Nation. The other thing that they announced around the same time was they have vowed to amend the Sex Discrimination Act after a recent federal court ruling.
You know who's had it too good for too long? Trans people. Get them, Angus.
Tom, do you have the background on this one?
Oh my god. So, the bit of a landmark ruling here in the landmark ruling where a trans woman was awarded damages effectively because they were kicked off a app, which the app was called Giggle for Girls, and its concept, as I understand it, is like a space for women to get together.
Just like social
media platform, social networking, just for women to share experiences and all that sort of stuff. And it seems it is inherently a bit transphobic because it kicked a trans woman off its platform. The court seems to have agreed. They awarded Roxanne Tickle was awarded $20,000 in damages against the app. On the grounds that the app has discriminated against Roxanne based on her gender.
And this is because to go back as well. So
I just read one of the comments. We can circle back to it in a sec.
In 2013, the Gillard Labor government passed a significant amendment to the Sexual Discrimination Act, making it illegal to discriminate on the grounds of sexual orientation, gender identity, and intersex status. What Angus Taylor is proposing is basically that you've got a man and a woman. And
that is what Angus Taylor's capitalizing on now. Is like under a government I lead, we will write into law that there are only men and only women, and he phrases it on the because he said the outcome of this case, quote, confirmed that Australian law does not properly protect single-sex spaces for women and girls.
Oh, yeah, you're so fucking concerned about women, Angus. Yeah, right. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, just fucking... I don't get why they're so fucking obsessed with this.
About other people's fucking genitalia, because they're fucking right-wing psychos, Tom. Yeah. This is just their true colours shining through, okay? This is exactly what we've always known about the Liberal Party.
The moderates are all gone now.
The moderates are gone.
They're gone.
It's all fucking Catherine Deves. It's Deves all the way down, baby. They don't give a fuck. They don't like immigrants. They don't like fucking trans people. They don't like women, but they know they can't say that out loud anymore. This is an inherently racist, jingoistic, far-right party. The only distinction between the Liberal Party and One Nation, as far as I can tell, is the hue, okay? One's blue and the other one's fucking orange.
The blue and orange go quite well together if you're comparing colours as like a contrasting colour palette, by the way, as well, just as a sort of marketing bit of advice there for the two parties. The reason why, you might think, why are they announcing all these things? It's because, they probably lost, they lost Farah. So Farah was a by-election. It was the seat of, I've already forgotten her name.
The former Liberal leader you're talking about.
Yes.
Susan Ley.
Susan Ley. Thank you very much. Suzanne, that's right. God, time is short. Anyway, so
she's already she faded into irrelevance so quickly that Adam's already forgotten her name.
Yeah.
She's left politics completely. Had a by-election in her seat. It did not go well for the Liberal Party. They have held this seat
since it was established,
created. Yes. Right? They lost it. To One Nation, not just by a little bit. They got their shit pushed in.
They got smushed. It was like 60-40 last I was looking at it.
I believe it came down, the two-party preferred vote came down to One Nation or the Independent.
The Liberal Party wasn't even in the final two.
Yeah, Liberal wasn't even in the conversation. They weren't even playing the same sport. Like, it's just...
And the other weird thing was the Nationals also ran in that seat. And it's like, guys, why are you taking votes away from each other? Like, anyway, don't get me started on that.
Yeah,
aspect.
pick a lane.
Yeah.
And that lane should be not One Nation.
We've got the entire spectrum of far right to extremely far right.
And I would have loved to have gotten into this prior to the actual by-election taking place, because there's a lot of aspects of this which is very interesting.
Well, I was
But the
feeling
point being
sad
is-
last week, Adam, so we didn't get the chance. Okay.
No, like even before that, like the week before, because it's been talked about for a while. So, the thing is, like, their candidate that they've put into this seat, whose name is David Farley. He apparently has been shopping around for a political party for some time. He was a member of Labor at one point. He approached the Liberals, had a chat with them, didn't quite go well there. He's been talked to some independents. He had a conversation with actually the independent that ran in this election.
What I
and
love
he ended up
is
at
a
One
candidate
Nation.
that has no principles whatsoever. And will just shop around for the party that gives him personally the greatest sort of leg up. That's definitely what you want in a representative.
Quite literally. Yeah. So now there's this theory here that the Libs let One Nation take this because at some point.
Oh, that might be what they're backgrounding, but no, if they wanted the seat back, they would have,
just get the seat.
yeah.
I was going to say, that is one hell of a galaxy brain.
There's this there's this 4D chess where it's like you let them take it because then you can get it back easier when One Nation when the candidate eventually splits from One Nation because
One step back, 2 steps forward. We were so intent on taking it next time and not now for some reason.
Yeah, you know what's a great strategy? Letting One Nation get the first ever lower house seat they've ever fucking gotten.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's actually, rather than them being a never elected party, let's now make them an elected party one time. Yeah, that seems worth it.
Let's
Great job,
validate them.
Angus. Well done.
Let's
You
validate
did it.
them electorally. Yeah, that's perfect.
And what's important to note here is all of the policies that David Farley, Pauline Hanson, who was on the campaign trail, were talking about were the same kind of things that Angus Taylor just announced
just
in his
talking
budget
about.
reply.
But more.
Now, look, there's been some, David Farley's kind of, he hasn't exactly repeated everything that Pauline Hanson says. So, there are some views around business and productivity that they, don't hold together.
Yeah,
He's also fairly well, he's probably the most, by the way, it's the other thing. He's also the most qualified.
Good luck in the party room, David.
The most qualified person now in that party.
Yeah.
He's been the head of various ag businesses and boards and stuff. He is more experienced than every single person in One Nation with anything.
And I've understood...
I just think he's going to be I can't work with these guys.
These people are all fucking idiots.
I've understood he's quite headstrong and maybe a bit of a loose unit. And coming up against the likes of Pauline Hanson and James Ashby, I don't know
A guy
how
who's
that's
a
gonna
former CEO is not going to take well to taking orders from chip shop owner Pauline Hanson. Okay, let me tell you right now.
Yeah, from
Anyway,
Pauline
I just wanna-
Day Hanson, I don't think it's going to go well.
While it's kind of plus, everything that's happening in the UK, this is just a marker of the fall of democracy, basically, but, or the rise of fascism, one of the two, both. I am looking forward to this whole thing disintegrating at some point in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Anyway.
One Nation or just our
system
system of government?
Democracy.
No. One democracy. I'd be sad about that. Pauline Hanson fighting David Farley in a pit,
Right.
in their underwear.
Yeah,
I'm all for that.
Yeah,
Let's
are
go.
we looking forward to the maybe reverse Barnaby Joyce? Is the
I'm
going
looking-
from
yeah.
One Nation into the Nationals or into Labour or something to be this is nuts. I can't do this.
Anyway, so that happened, before the budget, and I'm sure the effects of that are going to ruminate and trickle down as for many years to come.
Much like economics.
Much like economics.
Just on that, just one more before we move on. As one of the comments in our chat, you've been very active in the chat. We love you guys. Thank you. Twin Rotors in the chat is saying, Alan Kohler said this morning that migrant levels are at 170K annually, I assume. So he, Angus Taylor, would have to increase migration as housing supply is greater than this. It's currently, assuming 2.4 people per home. So he's saying you have to cut it. So it's migrants based on the number of houses that are available. It's like, well, on that basis, then actually we would have to increase it because 2.4 people live in a home based on the number of houses being built. There's actually fewer people coming in than there are houses being built. So, hilarious. Actually, I love that.
Yep, we need more migrants. Angus Taylor,
more migrants. More!
Conspiracy theory brain now. It's the politics is gone. Leave the politics aside.
Substance is done. Now we're just having fun. All right.
This is your dessert, ladies.
We've had our vegetables. We talked about tax policy for an hour. Talked about tax policy for 90 minutes, and now here's a little snifter of dessert, a little glass of port at Christmas,
which is also horrific, by the way. But it's still.
Oh, people have died.
Yeah, people have died. It's not good. People have died and gone missing.
Hey, man, this is as good as it gets on our natural selection, baby.
Yeah.
This is the best we got.
So it's just, we'll talk about what it is in a sec, but the headline here is the FBI is investigating recent deaths and disappearances of multiple US scientists. So there is a group of scientists and military personnel and security personnel, not just scientists, that have all gone missing or died since 2022. What the Trump administration has said, so grain of salt, everyone. Take it, rub it all over your face. Grain of salt. I don't know if that's what you do with a grain of salt. I don't know. Whatever.
It's a strange thing to have said. I keep going.
You could.
Is that
come on? We're at 90 minutes. I got to piss.
All of these deaths are connected, and they are going to investigate the possible interference of a foreign actor, which of course is just them looking at trying to move the cups around so you don't focus on the fact that the administration's garbage.
Who do you think they're going to try and blame it on? Iran? There
are some interesting coincidences here. Whereas lots of people have either died or disappeared from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is a bit odd. So in 2023,
that's the weird part of this is that
sounds like an episode of Fringe or X-Files or something.
Yeah, you
they're getting sucked into little black holes. That's what it is.
Yeah, you'd have the story that this article opens with. I found particularly harrowing, which is that one of these people, Monica Razor, who. Was one of the members of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Was hiking with a friend from yoga class in June 2025. And during that hike, Monica fell down about 30 meters behind her friend. And when the friend glanced back to look at her, she smiled back, waved, was like, "I'm okay." And then the friend kept going and then turned back to look again. And Monica was gone. And they looked for her. All they found was her beanie. She hasn't been seen since. Nearly
that
a
is
year
very
ago.
creepy.
Very creepy. And it feels like it's that kind of show where that would be that's what brings in Scully and Mulder. And then Scully and Mulder find out, did you know that over the past 4 years, there's been several people from this department who have either died or disappeared, and then it goes on from there.
We don't have
kind of like it's kind of like the it's like the I don't know, targeting scientists was a a thing back in the
especially post World War II.
so this has definitely been a thing. I'm aware that the US and the Israelis have targeted, for example, nuclear scientists in Iran and things like that. There have been targeted killings for that sort of express purpose. The US launched a big cyber attack called Stuxnet to take down the Iranian nuclear centrifuge apparatus in 2012, something like that. So I wouldn't put it past certain intelligence agencies to want to try and assassinate particular scientists in particular areas. But who would be what foreign nation would be bold enough to try and undertake that on American soil?
Russia.
I mean, there's only a few. It's like Russia, the Chinese, maybe the Iranians. Like, who would really try that? You know.
So other notable ones, just to name a few here. So there was Michael David Hicks, who died in 2023. Worked as a scientist from NASA's JPL from 1998 to 2022. His specialist area was physical properties of comets and asteroids. There was a general that died recently, went missing recently, William McClusland. He was a retired US Air Force Major General and former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory. He was once the commander of Wright-Patterson Base, which was part of the Roswell UFO incident. He also had a relationship, like he worked with Ms. Reza that Tom spoke about before. Yeah. So a couple of things, and there's a dozen other ones.
Is it just like people die? Like statistically, like people.
Statistically,
there's a lot of people die, right? Like,
there are 700,000 people that work in various classified UFO like special stuff in the United States, right? According to this article.
When you say UFO, you mean like things that would be adjacent to UFOs?
US top secret cleared aerospace and nuclear workforce. Yeah, 700,000 people, according to the
lot of
article.
Yeah. And not all of these deaths are suspicious. Like some of them have been car accident or drowning or things. But then again, like we've all seen movies like make it look like an accident, but all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, it's just
so crazy. Statistically, like the number of people that are dying in these industries is actually less than the national average or something.
Well,
like
there you
go. So, like it's.
Yeah,
but it's just weird.
If one of them has polonium poisoning, all right, well then, let me know. But
I love the quote here from investigator and pseudoscience debunker Mick West in a Substack article, where he said, the US top secret cleared aerospace and nuclear workforce is around 700,000 people. Ordinary mortality over 22 months predicts about 4,000 deaths, 70 homicides, and 180 suicides. This list has 10. At the time, I guess he wrote this. The deaths are real. The family's grief is real. The pattern is not. He's like, this is not a pattern. This is statistical likelihood.
These aren't the total list of people that have died in that industry. These are just ones that are people have sort of the UFO guys have put the dots together. And I think ultimately what this is just Kash Patel and the Trump administration moving the cups around.
Just look anywhere else except Iran.
You can see that Trump is really, really concerned about it because he said, quote, in April, coincidence, whatever you want to call it, but some of them were very important people and we're going to look at it over the next short period. He's only dedicating a little bit of time to this. We're just going to have a little bit of time to this.
A couple of weeks. Yeah, we're going to look at it we're going to go to war for a couple of weeks. Yeah. It's just a little baby war, and then we'll be in and we'll be out. Everything's a couple of weeks.
12 people in our top secret areas are dying or missing. Like, well, all right, I'll take a quick look. I'll block it. I'll time box it for after lunch. But
it's actually a fewer number than the Americans that you've sent to die in this pointless war in Iran, just by the way. But that's neither here nor there.
Why is no one talking about Epstein? Everyone's talking about this war. Remember Epstein?
This is the thing, is when your administration is so corruption-laden and, just kind of like thick with scandals, at a certain point, to your point, Adam, you can move the cups around, but the only things that are under all of the cups are additional scandals.
That and the cups are still red. Like, they're still red cups. They don't look any different.
Absolute, most cursed game of 3-card Monty.
3-scandal Monty. Anyway, back to Epstein. We're back to that to distract from the Iran thing, which was a distraction from Epstein.
Surprise, Epstein's under all the cups. Damn it.
On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that are ruining the world, that have, do, or ever will exist, at our handle, at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and mother flipping TikTok. You can follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Nice comments only, please, at George Tibos.
You can follow me on Threads at tom.heath. You can do mean comments. I just won't read them.
Smart. And you can follow me down to NASA's JPL, where I'll be interviewing for a job that I am definitely not qualified for. But if Kash Patel can get the job at the FBI, then you can do anything, guys.
Adam,
it's really kind of aspirational.
Have an opening.
Yeah.
It's kind of aspirational, right? Like, if Kash Patel, of all people, can be head of the FBI, maybe I can achieve my dreams.
Yeah. Are those dreams to be the head of the FBI? Because yes.
Maybe.
Sounds of it.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Rocket scientist.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.
I mean, a rocket's just a controlled explosion, right? So it's just about making something blow up. It's just blowing shit up. That's really
just
all a rocket scientist is.
Big, long, controlled explosion.
Yeah, sometimes the things that you say, Adam, concern me.